I'm Luke Seerveld. Welcome to another episode of Meet the Gaffer. Today we're going to talk about the Hive 57C, and we're going to talk about the Prolycht Orion 300 FS. Now, some manufacturers send me a light and want me to compare it to lights from other companies because they feel like they can't do that. They need a third party to do that. Others want me to do the more YouTube influencer thing where you just talk about their light, maybe some pros and cons, but you don't bring in names of other brands. For me, I really want to see the comparison. Why is a new light worth my while when I've got a whole truck full of lights already? My point of view is that any light you can get to market is worth thinking about. It may not be worth using, but it's just an awesome thing that you got it to market in the first place. So that's sort of my perspective, right? And so I want to think well of lights, even if they're a little off. Still, there's probably a place somewhere for them. Maybe not on my truck, but who knows, right? The truth is that both these units deserve their own episode. And the good thing is that Andrew Locke and his Gaffer and Gear channel on YouTube has already gone over the Prolycht Orion, and now it's the FS for full spectrum. So check that out. That's his episode 131, and plenty of detail there. They've updated a few things like the bail, like fan modes, some stuff in the menus. It was already a very robust, wonderful unit, and now it's even more so. So check that out. I just want to be able to turn it on and try it out in a lighting setup. So we'll do that afterwards. And you can skip this part and go to there. But first, I want to talk about why are these kind of lights showing up now? What makes them worthwhile? So maybe two things. One is point source lights, and they're on the rise. We've had plenty of panel lights. We're still getting panel lights. Now we're getting hard panel lights, which is kind of pointing to the fact that we need some hard lights. That's number one. Number two, these are both full spectrum units. They're full color. It's not just RGB, warm white, cool white. No, that's something you could do with panels. The manufacturer of point source colored units, you have to have all those colors in a really tight knot. And that's a harder thing to do. You can't spread them out like in a panel. So, making that happen, it tends to be more proprietary. And so each of these manufacturers have their own special sauce to come up with that color unit that, when sent through different modifiers, doesn't have all kinds of color aberrations and fringing and blah, blah, blah. So how do they make that happen? We'll get into that. So number one, with the point source. Okay, so starting out, tungsten, right? It's tungsten filament. That was a point source. And then now you'd modify that. You'd modify that through a Fresnel. You'd modify it less, but put it through a parabolic reflector. You might have a sealed lens on it that doesn't move, in park hands, that kind of thing. Or you'd have it with multiple layers of lenses in an ellipsoidal. Now, tungsten came in longer bulbs as well, like you'd have in, say, like a Totolite or a 2K zip or a 4K zip in cyc lights. That's sort of not so much point source, but now you broadened it out. But getting back to the point source idea, you'd have the point source bulb, and then you'd have whatever fixture you put it in. That's all it really did. Maybe you could put if it was a Fresnel, you could put a softener on it, or you put a Chimera box on it when those came out, or a Chrony-Cone or whatever. But it was meant to be a Fresnel focusing unit. And if it was a par, then it was a par, and you could maybe put some different lenses in that as well. But, sort of have a single idea for that light. And then you had that with HMIs. First they were double-ended, then they were single-ended. You'd put that in a Fresnel. And then you'd put that in a par, with a parabolic reflector. Then K5600 came out with the Joker. The Joker, first it was a fixed thing as well. Then it became a bug. Now the bug had a single source, like a bang stick. You could use that and put all kinds of different reflectors, Fresnels, lenses. Then you put it in a Jolico. Then you could put it in a tube. Now you've got a multi-use unit, and that was brilliant. All right, jump ahead to LED land, and we started with panels, one by ones. Then they got a little bit bigger. The color was off. Then the color got better. Then the sky panel came out. Now you had a really bright light, and on top of that, you had RGB. But they also came out with the L series. But the L series, they had to have a lot of lenses in front to capture all that color and get it out there without, too much fringing and stuff like that. So you lost output. Still very usable lights. ARRI had it from the beginning. So then we started seeing cob lights, so COB, chip on board. And that was just a manufacturing process where you could get all those emitters more tightly together, and you got certain efficiencies of power and output and heat. And so from aperture, from nanlight, we were seeing LED point source units that had incredible output. Now we're starting to see that as tunable white units, but you lose output. And what will be interesting to see is when that goes color and how that gets worked out. Because now like if I were to use a 2x Fresnel from aperture on this Orion, it doesn't quite work. So they have their own Fresnel. I haven't seen that yet, but they have their own Fresnel that works with the color. Getting that color, just like ARRI found out with their L series, getting that color to work together and not, give you all kinds of wacko fringing is not easy. So you think, okay, most of my shoots are daylight shoots. What do I care? Well, they're not all daylight. And if you have a need for harder units, often for background, for edges, for just, getting further distances. It's nice to have point source harder lights. And if you want to have good color, then having a fuller spectrum of emitters to draw from will allow you to have a cleaner white, potentially, from warm to cool. Because, as many people like to point out, that line between warm and cool white is not a straight line. It's a curve. And so as you make that trek from warm to cool, you've got green and magenta to play with. If you have a full spectrum of color to draw from, you can make that white a cleaner white. And, bonus, you've got all those colors. So when it does happen, it's nice to have. At the moment, more and more of my units are becoming full spectrum units, which I'm very happy about. For example, the Orion is RGB ACL. So it's red, green, blue, and then amber, cyan, and lime, which is also the same color breakout as the ARRI orbiter. Now, I'm not quite sure what the breakdown of different colors is for the Hive, but it's a similar approach where it's not RGB WW, fitting in warm white and cool white into that small area. I don't necessarily know how this all works, but what I'm seeing is that manufacturers who are making point source full color units, they're not going with RGB WW. They're doing RGB and then adding other colors to fill out that spectrum. FS, full spectrum. And as an aside, DMG Lumiere was doing that with their panel units. They were already bringing in those extra colors. So that was kind of a foreshadowing of what's going on now. And, ARRI, often first out of the gate with the orbiter. About the same time, the first Prolycht Orion was coming out as well. And, you know, to be honest, the Hive has, you know, this is just the latest iteration, but Hive's been making full color units for a while, just, you know, smaller output. And this is now top of the line. So, yeah, it's where things are going. It's going to get us a better color all around, and then you don't even have to think about it. You know, it's like if there's something you need to tweak, boom, it's easy. You can adjust it because you have all the color levers, so to speak, to make that happen. Now let's look at the physical aspects of these two units. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the Orion because you can find out more on Andrew's channel. Suffice it to say, you've got a robust handle for your tilt, quick power in, and then on the front you've got a Bowens and a lens to bring all those colors together. On the base, you can put it on a baby pin or take the knob off and put it in a junior. So that's for that. And then the head cable, there's a connector that maybe you haven't seen before, but it has an easy release and works well. As far as the power cable is concerned, you've got a connector that you've seen before. It's like PowerCon, but it's like the lesser version, you know, the kind that you often see on, I think, audio, you know, speakers. Anyway, and then there's also an on-off switch in the middle of the line and plug. The ballast is pretty well laid out. It has opportunity for 2 V-mount batteries, and then on the side you've got the on-off switch. You've got the place to put the head lead, and then 2 5-pin in and out, and RJ45 Ethernet. I'm not sure what this is. And then you've got your power. The nice thing is you get a clamp that, so it's a Mayfer super clamp that has a little V-mount attachment, and that snaps on nicely, and you can put that on your stand. There's nothing on the bottom, so you can put this on the floor if you have to, and you have a handy handle. The interface is actually very robust, and there are a lot of menu options, but it's easy to navigate, and there's a back button. So I like that. Anyway, you'll hear more about that if you check out Andrew's blog. Now let's get to the Hive. So what I didn't mention before is this is the Hive Super Hornet 575C. Here are some differences. So it's a baby receiver only here, and then you've got your tilt with a Euro handle, and then on top, in this cylinder of the unit, you can change where the yoke sits, so that if you have a heavier front modifier, then you can set the center closer to that weight, and just, you know, give yourself a fighting chance on the yoke. So that's innovative. You see that on other units too, but here it's pretty obvious because you can slide the entire length of the unit. Now I'm going to get rid of this guy here so we can come around, and you can see here that there is quite a beefy cable, and what that means is you don't have any controls on your unit. If you loosen this, you notice, like, yeah, it's 5 pounds. It's not super heavy, and all the brains are going to be in the control box. And now at the front, you have a small dome, and as you can see from the side, that's a dome, and it actually is pliable, but it needs to stay in there, and it won't overheat. It is sort of a near field blending. That's what it does to get all those colors together, just like the disc above. So there you've got that, and then there are 3 points here that stick out that you use to put on the different modifiers. But before we do that, why don't we go ahead and hook this up. So here's the cable, and it's beefy, and it's got a lot of pins in there. So let's go ahead and put that on. So here's the control box, and so you've got a screen, you've got some knobs, and then on the back side you've got the R45 and also a USB-C in there. Then on the front side, that's where your head lead goes in. You've got power, and this is power through, so you can daisy chain a couple of them. And then you've got 5-pin DMX top there, in and out, and 48 volt DC, and then on off, and you have CRMX, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. All those little antennas are right jammed together there, and power. So why don't we plug this guy in? You can see that there, HSI, and right now I've got the underlying CCT at 16, so quite warm, and then saturation at 100, hue is at 1, and intensity is at 1. So here at 1 degree of intensity, we've already got some light going. So if I go down, let's see. So that is, I've just taken the intensity off, straightforward. And if I left that, oh, that went to, oh, so I guess there's a fine and a coarse version of that. So if I go down, oh yeah, a little arrow next to it, and if I take off hue, then I can go through the different colors. And if you're looking at it at the actual source, even though it's only at 1%, it's better to look at my skin tone, say, because there you're seeing what it's doing. Now we're going through the blues and into more. There's a cyan and green, but again just at 1%, and there's your fuller green, rotating through yellow, then we'll get to orange here, and this is a very robust saturated color, and then we'll get all the way to red again. And here we go through our reds all the way down to 1, 1, and 360. You can go back around the zone, and now you can set your base CCT. Here it's at 1650, so if we change that, it goes to 19,950, so basically 20,000. You can change the base CCT underneath whatever your color is. So you only have one profile, but it's really all you need because you have all the color and all the CCT at your fingertips. So now if you line this up with an app, then you can also get effects. Also, I'd like to see how this works via Wi-Fi controlled by the blackout lighting console. That's the physical aspect, and now let's go try it out in a scenario. All right, let's turn on these units. In terms of the Hive, it has a very small form factor so that it can fit right on the front of it ProPhoto type modifiers. And it also has a 3-pronged bayonet type front so that you can put on these reflectors. There's a small one with doors, there's a larger one with larger doors, and then this larger one also takes these medium wide and super wide diffusers. Then there's a Fresnel. So it's a Fresnel that has a little bit of a spot flood. It goes into it and out, which is interesting. And then there is a softbox. So a nice little softbox, really compact. I love it. It's great. And then there is also an ellipsoidal adapter. So this accessory is cool because it uses existing ETC ellipsoidal barrels, and then it goes to a Profoto converter. All right, let's go ahead and try this out. So I'm going to turn on the unit. We'll turn it on. I've got it in wired mode, so I just have it 5-pin DMX to the light panel's Apollo bridge, and then I'm seeing that via Wi-Fi here. And so, yeah, that just comes on right there. So that's 3200. An odd color though. Let's just see where we're at. So that's at 30%. It says 3200. 3200 on the nose, but it's asking for a half minus green. Half minus green. I put that in front. So now it says no correction needed, but now we're at 2750. So it seems quite a bit, yeah. So to eye, it seems like it's a little green, but this is at 30%. Now let's go to 50% and check that. Still wants half minus green. It's still at 3200. So it's on at the CCT. Let's just go to 100. That's blowing that out quite a bit. Now it's just asking for 2 8 minus greens. It's weird how this Conic does that. But again, 3200. So yeah. So if I went to a quarter minus green, it still wants a little bit, but and then it takes down the Kelvin by 200 Kelvin. Okay, well, so this is with no modifier at all. This is at 100, so let's just take this down to 50%. So, okay, so there's at 50, and then let's try the Fresnel, shall we? Okay, so that's as loose as it can be. Now it does have some numbers on the bottom here. There's like a 4, 5. So I'm not quite sure how far you're supposed to go onto it. Should have asked about that. Now that is at full flood. Let's just see where that is. Okay, it's a relatively tight beam. And then if we flood that out a little bit, now, I don't know if you can hear it, but I can hear this this fan quite a bit, and this feels pretty yellow to me. Let's just go to 5600 since that's what the cameras are set to. So I'll go 56. And what does Mr. Meter say? Mr. Meter says 5400 and asking for an 8 minus green. So that's close enough for government work. All right, that's with the Fresnel, and that's flooded. And now we'll go to spot again. So we'll loosen this, bring that out. There's our spot. And maybe, I'm just going to kind of jump around here a little bit. So here, foot candles to the unit. I've got 220. And then I'll go back to the spottier mode. Oh no, that was the spot mode. Now here is that's 110, so that's half the output with spot the flood. So interesting. Now maybe I'll take this down a minute. This is like a little over 6 feet, 190 foot candles to the unit. Let's put the larger one on. All right, let's turn it off. Let's turn that on. Definitely a hot spot there. 480, 100, 150, 200, 250, 3, 4, 480. Yeah, so hot spot. So now put a medium in there. 220, 160. And then we go to the wide. Smoother, wider beam. 190. 100. Then let's go to the super wide. $200. Interesting. You're actually getting more output with the wide. That seems odd. Not quite understanding that. And then you have doors that can go on that. Probably makes it relatively heavy, but then you can change where, because you know that's not working well for this. But if I can't do it with this, no, then you have to change where it's on the barrel. So move the barrel back into the holder, and now I should have better, yeah. Now if I loosen it's still heavy, so I could still go more forward, but the lock can handle it at that. Of course, I left the doors closed. Not smart. Yeah, it's still not quite able to do it. So I'd have to come really far forward. Interesting. Yeah, not sure I'm a fan of this locking mechanism. I get how versatile it is, but it's a little suspect, I think. Okay. So now let's take this out and let's try the ellipsoidal front. Actually, perfect world, I'd get the softbox on. So this comes out, and this comes off. Okay. Then it'd be nice to get this on. So that's loose. And there's gotta be a way. There's gotta be a way. Oh, frick. Okay. That's as loose as it possibly can get.
What am I missing? Come on now. Come on. Oh. All right, I don't want to force it. It's a shame. I mean, this is a really fun modifier. It's a nice size, you know, sort of a mini size. But boy, the tolerance is too tight to get it on easily to this unit. So I don't know. I'm not sure how that plays out. Okay, let's now take this off a minute and we'll put the ellipsoidal on. Putting this down and here. Here's the ellipsoidal. Okay. Okay, let's try this Profoto front. And how far should it go in is the question. I guess it just goes to where you can't push it in anymore. Like there. That's at number, it's not even, that's pretty much it though, huh? Boom, okay. It's not even at 4. It worries me a little that this is not in there far enough. And you have to line it up so it's level, but it seems like it leans back a little. Wonder how that'll change the seating on the ellipsoidal. This lens is 19. Let's turn that on. Okay, that's at 50. 5600 on here. Here it says 5250, and it wants a quarter minus green. Let's see if we pan it through. There we've got some fringing on both sides. That's a little harder there. And we run that past. Oh, that's pretty clean. There's just a little bit of a shadow. Okay, that's about almost 5500 and 8th minus green. 5340 and a quarter minus green. So, and that's 5600 and 8th minus green. So it seems like there's some different play going on here of colors. Let's just for yucks put a window pattern in. And just see how, it's not bad. And then when we fuzz it out, what happens? Okay, so yeah, there's definitely color going on there. Yeah, you get the yellow, but pretty sharp is possible. Okay. Let's take that out of there. And then I think that's it. So with the Prolycht Orion 300 FS, we only have 3 different modifiers. We have the reflector that comes with it, and then we have what you can purchase is it's a type of ellipsoidal type of thing. It's really just well, you can put patterns in it and you can cut it, but you can't, and you can focus it on a ring, but you don't focus it with the barrel going in and out. So it's a smaller contraption. I'll just show it to you here. So it's got a fixed lens on it. I guess it's not that fixed because it does go in and out for focus. And then you have a place to put in gobos, just little patterns, and they give you like 15 or 16 with your attachment. So that's pretty cool. So we can look at some of those. We'll just look at the window pattern because that's what we saw in the other one. Then you get these. You get an iris, handy dandy iris, and then you also get, well, this is the holder. So it's a cutter and a holder for your patterns. So it has 4 leaves that you can cut in to modify. And then I also have a full-on, soft box. So, a dome. All right. At the moment, I'm at, well, here's 4,400 at 50%. And this is with the, this is a Bowen's mount. So if I take this out, there's just the unit raw. Just seeing it here. So there at just roughly 6 feet, I've got 170 foot candles. If I put on the reflector, and make sure that it's generally in the beam. There we go. 200 foot candles. And then color-wise, I'm just going off of that. So I'm not controlling it now with blackout. I'm just running it off the unit. And I've got 4324. And this is at 4400. So if I go down to, this will go all the way down to 2000. Nice and warm. 2000, yeah, this is 1918. And let's see, stay at, if I go to 32. 32. 32, and that's spot on. It's saying an 1/8 plus. And then if we go to 56, this is actually saying 5,300 at 1/8. 1/8 plus green. And then let's go to 10,000 because we can. And this is 8,800. And then if we go to 20,000, 20,000, and this says 15,000. But again, it's just 1/8 minus green. So let me just take it down in intensity a minute. 25% at 3,200. Yeah, that's pretty close. 3128 and an 1/8 plus green. Okay, it's asking for. And then if we go to 4,400, this is 4,200 and no color correction. And then we go to 5,600 and it says we're at 5,200, so it's 300 off. Oh no, it's 400 off and no color correction. So that's that. So if we wanted to bring it to 56, let's say we go to 50, or we go to 6,000, where does that get us? So that's 5,600 here, no color correction, and 6,000 on the unit. but a very clean 5600. Okay, now let me show you this accessory. And I'll keep it at 6,000. Actually, just for yucks, why don't we put in iris. And if we put the iris right on there, and we focus this in, I guess you could argue it's not a perfect, it's got some facets on the circle, but color-wise, if we go up 100%, that's 100%. Now we take that out and we'll put in the gobo. We'll go back to 50%. And for some reason it's not lining up with blackout right now, so I'm not using it through blackout. So there's the cut. And there's no, I'm not seeing any color fringing whatsoever. So that's pretty slick. So just so we're clear, there's two different holders here. One just for patterns, one that could take patterns apparently, but then the cutters would come in a little too sharp on it. I mean, would encroach on it. But if you wanted to have them both at the same time and you didn't mind a little vignetting from the cutters, then you could do that. So that's these are two different things that you get. Just because we're here, why don't we try another one? So that would be focused, and that would be unfocused. So it's very clean for a full color, full spectrum unit. That's a really clean, defocused gobo. I mean, you can't get that with daylight HDs. It's hard to find. So that's pretty cool. All right, and then the last thing we should try is just, you know, what can work with pretty much any hard unit, and that is a softbox. So the Prolycht softbox is actually pretty nice. It's just like a lot of the others. But you just snap it all out. There we go. Boom. It has an inner baffle if you want it. And there's a control grid. But we'll just put the front on it. And this looks like a grid, a half grid kind of a front. So we'll pop this nice and easy. And put this guy on. Excellent. And now we come up to 100%. There's 100%. Let's see where we are. If it changes the color at all. So yeah, 5600, no color correction. And that on the dial is 6,000. So 6,000 gets us 56 on the meter. 120 foot candles at whatever this is, like 5.5 feet. From the diffusion, 5.5 feet. So in summary, we've got two units that have a very solid tunable white with color behind it. And I would say for the Hive, get it in your hands. Ask for the demo unit. Then you'll know if it will fit in with your current inventory. I think the Prolycht is sort of more of a known quantity. It's very similar to sort of the aperture feel, but now you've got full color. So, you know, a pretty clean unit, has a good interface. The only thing you don't get is you don't get built-in lumen radio. So you do have to add a Centenna or similar to get Wi-Fi capability. I'm still working it out with the blackout. It doesn't see sort of one-to-one yet with the profiles of the unit, but they were able to go in and work with the fan mode. So now you have a high, a medium, a low, and a silent, but the low mode is workable in sound environments. So it's just nice to have that changeability. Of course, this is not a definitive review. This is just me getting hands-on with the unit. So for myself, it gives me a sense for how this might now fit into my work. I've been able to use the Orion a number of times in its earlier configuration on MOS sets where we needed just that sort of pinpoint type of light. I had Daylight HD ellipsoidals with me, you know, the luster versions, the color versions, but they weren't quite right. This was the right thing for that set. NDA, I can't show it. There was another shoot where we needed just sort of that streak of light with smoke, and we were doing product stuff, and it was, again, just the right light. I tried it with the Q5s. They weren't quite narrow enough. You know, this had that, and without the color fringing, you know, this was perfect. You know, as a gaffer, you just want to have as many tools as possible because there are always these sort of specific needs where you need a very particular tool. And I'd say the Orion is handy because it'll fit that specific thing and the broader deal where you just need it on a softbox. I think the Hive also has you know, broad use and can be used in more specific things, but I'm thinking that the tools maybe aren't as particular as I'd like them, but for your needs, that may be just fine. So check it out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Shout out to the folks at Hive for sending out the demo units. It's a wonderful program they've got going. Do take advantage of it. Also, the folks at Prolycht sending out the Orion, let me play with it for way too long. They've been all very generous. I just wish I could have lived up to their generosity. And I'd like to thank my co-talent for not making any crazy faces, just hanging in there with me. So thank you to the head. They were great.